Friends, and welcome to this weekly press briefing. After my briefing, there will be a curtain raiser on the visit of Honorable Vice President, his first overseas visit. Before we move into the Q&A session, I have one important announcement to make, and that relates to the official visit of External Affairs Minister to Myanmar on 10th and 11th May, which is part of the ongoing high-level interaction which we have with the government of Myanmar. During the visit, EAM will hold discussions with the Myanmar leadership on various bilateral, regional, and multilateral issues of mutual interest. They are expected to also review the progress made on the decisions taken during the last visit of Prime Minister to Myanmar in September 2017 to reinforce our bilateral relationship. Several key agreements covering diverse aspects of our bilateral relations are expected to be signed during this visit. And as in the past, we will, of course, keep you updated with the program once the visit gets underway. So that is the announcement which I had, and now I open the floor to questions. Athar?
Does the MEA have an official position on regards to where it stands in the recently restarted Nimarana dialogue? Does it have a position, first of all, at all?
Athar, we have seen the reports which have come in the section of the press. This is a meeting between two civil societies. This is a meeting which is part of people-to-people exchange. And if you recall, I have mentioned in the past that the functional exchanges between the two sides, they have continued and is actually part of the normal process between the two countries. So there's nothing new which we see in this dialogue. I think it is part of the normal process. Later. Vinita?
Ravish, you talked about the External Affairs Minister's visit to Myanmar. Can you just give us some details about India's, we have promised some money and also some houses to Myanmar for repatriation of the Rohingya refugees. So what is the progress on that? And are we also extending some more credit lines or some more facilities to, facilitate the repatriation of Rohingyas at the earliest?
Vinita, there are, as I mentioned, that there are certain agreements which will be signed during the visit of the External Affairs Minister. So I don't want to kind of share those details at this point of time. Our position, which we have taken on the displaced persons, I think that I have articulated from time to time. Basically, broadly, if I can mention that they have basically two elements. One, of course, we have shared that the normalcy in the Rakhine state will be restored with the return of displaced persons. Once they are returned to that state, that is a very important component of how the normalcy can be restored. But we have also mentioned at the same time that a long-term solution is the socio-economic development of the Rakhine state. And we have also said that we welcome the agreement which has been signed between Myanmar and Bangladesh for the return of displaced persons. But the details of what exactly will be discussed, I think that you will have to wait till External Affairs Minister visits. Siddhant?
Sir, there are also reports of Prime Minister going to Nepal. Something you can share on that visit itself?
Siddhant, I can only share that this visit of Prime Minister to Nepal will be taking place on 11th and 12th May 2018. Apart from Kathmandu, the possibility of a visit to Janakpur and Muktinath is being explored. We are at this point of time working on various other elements of the program. In fact, our advanced team is still in Kathmandu in Nepal as we speak. So there are certain elements which are still being tied up. We will, of course, make a formal announcement of the visit, which will have more details about the different places and cities which he is going to visit, as well as certain elements of the program. So we will have a formal announcement coming in very soon. Yeah.
Sir, during Prime Minister's visit to Wuhan, one of the outcomes, I believe, was that India and China will be working on joint projects in Afghanistan, at least one economic project or something like that. Could you give us some more details about what this project is, what kind of project, where, any details at all?
After the meeting, we had issued a detailed press release, and there was also a press interaction by the Foreign Secretary, where we mentioned that the two leaders exchanged views on long-term and overarching issues of bilateral and global interest. I can confirm that this topic which you just referred to did come up for discussion between the two sides regarding a joint economic project in Afghanistan. Now we are at a stage where both sides will have to continue discussions to identify a specific project, as part of this understanding. So at that moment, at that point of time, given the nature of the visit and the nature of the discussion, it did not focus on specific projects, which the two sides should do. That will subsequently be discussed, when the two sides meet, as and when in the near future. Yes, please.
चाइना विजिट के दौरान क्या प्रधानमंत्री मोदी और चाइनीज प्रेसिडेंट के बीच में इकोनॉमिक कॉरिडोर और चारबाग को लेकर कोई बातचीत हुई थी?
जैसा फॉरेन सेक्रेटरी ने बताया और हमने भी अपने प्रेस रिलीज में कहा है कि उस विजिट में किसी स्पेसिफिक इश्यूज पे बात नहीं हुई. हमने कहा था कि इसको ओवरआर्चिंग लॉन्ग टर्म ऑब्जेक्टिव के तहत डिस्कशन हुई थी. स्पेसिफिक मुद्दों पर उस समय डिस्कशन नहीं हुआ था, और इसीलिए मैं बताना चाहूँगा कि ये जो आप डिस्कशंस की बात कर रही हैं वो हुई नहीं थी. रंजीत जी.
During Prime Minister's visit to China, both the leaders also decided to issue strategic guidance to their militaries. Can you elaborate on this strategic guidance word?
Strategic guidance, in fact, it has been explained very clearly. I think it's the press release itself is self-explanatory. But I think there was a discussion on how the two sides can properly manage the bilateral relationship from the strategic and long-term perspective. And when I say strategic communication, I think this is basically in order to build trust, build understanding between the two militaries. These are basically broad guidelines. Now, below that, how the two militaries are going to take it forward from these broad overarching directions, these are operational matters, I think, which will be discussed between the two militaries and actions will be taken by them. Akhilesh ji.
Sir, Pakistan Prime Minister has directed his officials to forcefully pursue the Indus water issue.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the stage of Indus water issue? Whether, at what stage is this?
No, Akhilesh ji, from this forum, I have mentioned time and again, whenever the meeting of the Indus Water Commissioners take place, in fact, the last meeting took place in Delhi. And this is an ongoing negotiation, which keeps on happening, and this is as part of a treaty between India and Pakistan that you discuss the matters which arise out of the Indus water. So these discussions are ongoing. It is not something which you could resolve in a day. I think there is a mechanism that this dialogue takes place at regular intervals. I think it is twice in a year, if I am not mistaken. Once in India and the other, and then in Pakistan. ब्रह्म प्रकाश.
मेरा सवाल पाकिस्तान को लेकर है. अभी हाल ही में सिविल सोसाइटीज़ की दोनों देशों के जो मीटिंग हुई, आपने कहा कि वो चलती रहती है. क्या भारत सरकार की पाकिस्तान को लेकर नीति में कोई बदलाव आया है? क्या पाकिस्तान की तरफ से नीति में बदलाव आया है? आतंकवाद को लेकर जो रुख था भारत का कि जब तक वो उसको सपोर्ट देना बंद नहीं करते, वार्ता नहीं करेंगे, क्या ये वार्ता का आधार तैयार कर रही है सिविल सोसाइटी दोनों देशों के बीच?
नहीं, मुझे नहीं लगता कि ऐसी कोई आधार तैयार करने वाली बात है. जैसा मैंने कहा कि कुछ एक्सचेंजेस होते हैं जो नॉर्मल प्रोसेस होते हैं और जो सिविल सोसाइटी का एक्सचेंज होता है. जैसे आप देखें कि DGMO लेवल पे भी मुलाकात होती रहती है. इसका ये मतलब नहीं हुआ कि कोई बदलाव हो रहा है या कोई आधार बनाया जा रहा है. आपको हमारा स्टैंड जो है पाकिस्तान का के अगेंस्ट वो बहुत ही क्लियर है, बहुत ही कंसिस्टेंट है। हमने बार बार कहा है कि जो उनको वो सपोर्ट कर रहे हैं टेररिस्ट को, टेरर इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर को, हमने कहा है कि टेरर एंड टॉक्स कांट गो टुगेदर। तो उसमें कोई बदलाव नहीं है, कोई डाइल्यूशन नहीं है, वो अपनी जगह पर बिल्कुल खड़ा है। Sridhar?
So I have a question related to the one just asked. You said that this is part of the normal process between the two countries. So should we construe that it has got in some way the blessings of the two governments, because there were reports that the teams of the military, former military veterans and the other academics, they will submit reports to their respective governments. And you have just said that it's part of a normal process between the two countries. So should we read between the lines that this is has got the blessings in some manner of the two governments?
Sridhar, what you read between the lines is up to you. I mean, I can't indulge in speculation from this forum. As I mentioned that, if a group of Indians, they are going to Pakistan to take part in a dialogue, the only thing which they need is a visa from the Pakistani side. So I will leave it at that. As I mentioned that it is something which is a part of the normal process, the dialogue between civil societies, the people-to-people exchange, and that is what has happened.
सर, आज ही पाकिस्तान से जितेंद्र अर्जनवार की वापसी हुई है। इस बारे में कुछ बता सकते हैं कि वो किस तरह से पूरा उनका वापस आना?
शैलेंद्र, मुझे लग रहा है मैंने ये ट्वीट देखा था जो हमारे जो हाई कमीशन है पाकिस्तान में उन्होंने किया था। पूरी डिटेल में उनकी जानकारी नहीं है, बट जो ट्वीट में था उन्होंने एक्सप्लेन किया है कि किस सर्कमस्टांसिस में वो उस शख्स की वापसी इंडिया हुई है। उन्होंने कहा है कि इसमें काफ़ी लोग इन्वॉल्व थे इसको इंडिया भेजने में, बट जो बैकग्राउंड क्या था वो उसकी जानकारी मुझे अभी नहीं है। जो स्टेटस, जैसा मैंने कहा कि बार बार हम रिक्वेस्ट करते हैं, टेकअप करते हैं उनसे, और काफ़ी बार हमने इस इशू को टेकअप किया हुआ है, वो वहीं पर है अभी, उसमें कोई चेंज नहीं है उस स्टेटस में। Athar?
Try and rephrase it. Does the current revival of the so-called Nimrana dialogue meet with the approval of the MEA, unofficially or officially?
Athar, I will not get into that. Again, I will not get drawn into a debate on a dialogue between the two civil societies. As I mentioned that, the two sides, the two civil societies decided to meet. This is part of the normal exchange between the people of the two sides, between the civil societies of the two sides, and that is where I will leave it. Okay. Ramanand first and then you.
This is regarding Venezuela. Do we have a position on the sanctions and all that have been imposed on Venezuela in the context of, I think, Venezuela offering us oil at 30% discount if we bought it in cryptocurrency?
So has anything happened recently? Because I think the position which we have in Venezuela is the same,
This is in the context of Venezuela offering to sell us oil at 30%.
No, I am not aware of any change in our policy. I think despite, and I am not aware of the report which you are referring to.
Okay.
So anything on Nirav Modi? Has the Hong Kong authorities responded? And there were reports also in media that apparently he is now in New York. Any update?
No, you see, in the past I have mentioned, in fact, one is that I can't indulge in speculation. In fact, there are reports of him being in many countries. As far as MEA is concerned, we come into the picture once we receive a specific request from our agencies vis-a-vis a particular country. When it happened vis-a-vis Hong Kong, we shared the matter with you, we shared information with you. At this point of time, so far, we have not received any specific request from our agencies regarding this case. And as and when the request comes to us, then we act on it. Kalol?
So the question is, you announced that his passport was to be revoked, right? So the question is, was the passport revoked? And did the government of India inform all the international authorities about it? Like, the embassies and high commissions, that he should not be allowed to travel?
Kalol, that is part of the normal process. In fact, I have announced that his passport was revoked because he did not reply to the letter which we had sent to him. Now, the normal process is that once you revoke the passport, then you inform all the agencies, all the PIAs concerned, Passport Issuing Authority, all our high commissions, consulates. So this is the part of the normal process. It's a part of the normal drill which we do. Thank you very much. I don't see any more questions. I'll be back soon with the other members of the team to brief you on Vice President's visit to 3 countries. Thank you. Friends, good afternoon once again, and I'm back with a team. We will brief you on the first official visit of Vice President Shri M. Venkaiah Naidu, who will be traveling to Guatemala, Panama and Peru from 6th to 12th May. This is a curtain raiser briefing. I have with me Secretary East. I also have Joint Secretary LAC. Secretary East will give you an overview about the visit, and once the briefing is over, then we will also take some questions on the visit from all of you, Assembly Leader. Ma'am, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ravish, and good afternoon, dear friends, and thank you for kindly joining us this afternoon for this special briefing on Honorable Vice President's visit to these three important countries in the Latin American region. As you just heard, Ravish mentioned, JSXP mentioned that Honorable Vice President would be visiting Guatemala, Panama, and Peru. This would be his first official overseas visit, and the fact that he has chosen to go to three countries in Central and South America shows the importance that India attaches to its relations with that region. You would recall that in 2014, our Prime Minister, one of his first visits, in fact, had been to Brazil for the BRICS summit, at which point he had also had the opportunity to meet with several leaders of the Latin American region. Thereafter, we've had sustained, continuous high-level interactions with many other countries. For example, during the BRICS BIMSTEC Outreach Summit in Goa, there was a full bilateral visit with Brazil, and then Prime Minister had also gone to Mexico. We've had our Minister of State for External Affairs make several visits to countries in that region. We've had our former Vice President of India attend the NAM Summit, lead the Indian delegation to the NAM Summit. We had the Home Minister of India attend the funeral of President Fidel Castro. And now, with Vice President of India in his first overseas visit focused on these three countries, shows the importance that we give to the region. Honorable Vice President will be accompanied by a high-level delegation comprising of the Minister of State for Tribal Affairs, Shri Jaswant Singh Babur, and 4 members of Parliament representing 4 different political parties, and senior officers of the Government of India. India attaches importance to its relations with the Latin American region, as I mentioned earlier. In fact, we share very warm and friendly and cordial relations with all of these countries. Over the last few years, our relations with the region, both in terms of our political engagement as well as our trade and commercial engagement, has in fact intensified significantly, and I did give you some details of high-level contacts. There is an immense amount of goodwill for India and all of these 33 countries of the Latin American region. And we coordinate very closely in international forums. We are part of the South-South cooperation, so in the G77, at the United Nations, in the non-aligned movement, as part of discussions in the WTO, and other such multilateral forums, we work very closely together. This region is important for us also for our energy security and food security. Specifically with these 3 countries, when I come to them, I'll tell you exactly what are our economic areas of interest with them. While he'll of course meet with the political leadership in each of these 3 countries, Honorable Vice President has made it a point to include in his program meeting with the Indian diaspora, even though the diaspora in a country like Guatemala is very small. In spite of it, he has taken time out to ensure that he meets with them because of our very close cultural and emotional attachment that the Indian diaspora has with India, and a very special dimension of this relationship. Our relations with the region, both in terms of our political engagement as well as trade and commerce, has intensified, as I mentioned earlier. And certainly this visit is going to further enhance that engagement. Our trade and investment is one of the main drivers of this relationship. However, there is scope and potential for doing better, and we hope that this visit will again help enhance that. We look forward to enhancement of commercial and economic profile, particularly in the areas of pharmaceuticals, medical equipment, mining equipment, engineering, automobiles equipment, infrastructure, and information technology. Indian companies are already present in these sectors in these 3 countries. In addition to that, we seek cooperation in other strategic areas, including cooperation in space, in telematic tracking, satellite fabrication, science and technology, and biotechnology. Moving on to country-specific, Honorable Vice President will be in Guatemala on 6th. That is the biggest country in Central America in terms of its population and economy. It has a population of about 16 million people, 16.6. India-Guatemala relations have traditionally been cordial and friendly over the years. The bilateral trade, in fact, has grown consistently, and in just a few years, it has grown from $152 million to, today it is $262.93, so really $263 million. The visit of Honorable Vice President is the highest ever from either side, so that is a special marker. It will focus on exploring various areas of mutual cooperation. During the visit, Honorable Vice President will have bilateral meetings with the President, the Vice President, the Speaker of the Parliament, and the Mayor of the city of Antigua, Guatemala, which is an ancient city, a little away from Guatemala City. Our discussions are expected to focus on mutual areas of cooperation. Some of the sectors I've already shared with you. In addition to that, also in areas such as protection of wildlife, they have a very good example of protection of the jaguar population, as we have with the tiger population in India. On human resource training and development, we have already provided iTech training courses there. There's an interest in learning English from us, information technology, so that will be an important area of focus, and of exchanging know-how on training institutes. We are certain that this visit will enhance our existing relations with Guatemala. Moving on to Panama, Honorable Vice President will reach there the following day, that is 7th of May. India's relations and linkages with Panama are the oldest in Central America region. You would recall more than 100 years back, really, end of 19th century, Indian workforce had gone to build their railway lines, and then subsequently also contributed to the construction of the Panama Canal. And so there has been that old linkage of the old Indian diaspora there. Today, Panama is a major hub for logistics, for financial and banking sector, for shipping. So those are the areas where we seek greater cooperation with them, and there is potential. India and Panama have always had cordial ties based on our commonality of shared commitment to democracy, to pluralism, to multiculturalism, and to rule of law. Our bilateral trade turnover is about $424 billion. Honorable Vice President's engagements will include meetings with the President, the Vice President, the Foreign Minister, and it will cover various bilateral cooperation areas, including agriculture, culture, education, council, economic cooperation, and also traditional medicines and Ayush-related subjects. We will also hold discussions on cooperation in multilateral forums and, of course, regional issues. Honorable Vice President will visit the famous Panama Canal, and he will, I've mentioned earlier, meet the Indian community and address students of the international studies at the University of Panama and the Panamanian diplomats before his departure. Moving on to Peru, that would be the last leg of Honorable Vice President's visit. Peru today has emerged as a very important partner for India. Our bilateral trade turnover is about $32 billion? $3 billion. The Vice President is scheduled to meet the President. Just 1 month back they had a change of government. And so in spite of the fact that there's a new government, the government of Peru very warmly have invited our Vice President, and so he will meet with the President, the Vice President, the Prime Minister, and the President of the Congress, as well as the Foreign Minister of Peru. This is an important landmark here in our bilateral relations because we are also celebrating the 55th anniversary of establishment of diplomatic relations. So there will be a special function which Honorable Vice President will attend to mark this landmark here, and he'll also deliver an address on this occasion. He will visit the Congress, the Parliament of Peru, meet with the India-Peru Parliamentary Friendship Association. I've mentioned already the trade is $3 billion. Our trade agreement that we have. We are in the process of negotiating one. Covers trade in goods, services, and investment. 2 rounds have taken place, but I think it's moving very positively. In addition to that, both sides will review the entire spectrum of our bilateral relations, including trade, commerce, investment, information technology, which I had earlier referred to, traditional medicine, space, defense, culture, amongst other issues. Peru has been supportive of India's candidature as a permanent member of the reformed UN Security Council. They have also joined the International Solar Alliance as a founding member. We see many areas of convergence with Peru, and Honorable Vice President looks forward to his visit to all the 3 countries, which we hope will in fact enhance further our very cordial, warm relations with each of the 3 countries. Now, I'll stop here. Be happy to take questions.
Thank you, ma'am. Just one sec. We will be issuing a press release on the visit later this evening, which will have some of the details which Secretary just mentioned. I now open the floor for questions. Akhilesh ji.
Madam, as you said that Vice President chose to visit in this region. So what is the region, what is new initiative that we want to take in this region, and Vice President chose this?
Any other questions? Okay, so, sorry? So I'll start with the dates. The dates for Guatemala are 6th and 7th of May. For Panama, it is 8th and 9th of May. And Peru, it's 10th and 11th of May. As far as new areas of cooperation are concerned, as I mentioned to you, there is Indian presence and Indian interest in each of the 3 countries, in pharmaceuticals, in information technology, and automobiles, as well as capacity building, education, training, etc. These are ongoing areas which we will explore further. I think in my earlier briefing, I did mention additional areas such as cooperation in the space sector. Specifically, I think I also mentioned to you, as far as Guatemala is concerned, that we're looking at cooperation in training institutes, collaboration there, or in protection and preservation of wildlife. Those are 2 new areas of interest as far as Guatemala is concerned. As far as Panama is concerned, there are consular-related issues which are important for us, and I think we are in discussions with them on that particular aspect. Then, as I mentioned again in my briefing, that because Panama is an important hub for logistics, for shipping, for financing and banking, I think those would be other areas where we would be holding discussions. Moving on to Peru, Peru is an important, country for mining. It is perhaps one of the largest countries for silver, copper, gold, etc. So we will certainly be looking at areas of cooperation in the mining sector, in Ayurveda, in medicinal plants. All 3 countries are rich, biodiverse countries, and therefore hold a lot of potential in further collaboration in this particular, in the field of biotechnology and medicinal plants. New and renewable energy is another area that we are looking at for collaboration with Peru. Solar, they're already founding members of the Solar Alliance, but that is one other area of importance for us where we can collaborate. Culture, because Peru as well as Guatemala and Panama all are, have had very rich civilizational cultures, and so cultural exchange is an area where we are looking at. Indian culture, including yoga and traditional medicines, are popular there, and I'm sure there'll be further interest in enhancement of a cultural exchange as far as our traditional cultures are concerned. And then finally, on archival, again related to culture, would be some new areas that we will be looking at, apart from space, collaboration in the space sector and satellite telemetry, etc. So those will be the new areas.
Sorry, any other question? Yes, please.
What is the size of the Indian diaspora in Guatemala? And are they recent migrants or are they been there for some time?
I believe it's a very small number. Should not be more than 300 people in Guatemala. So the largest Indian diaspora is in Panama, about 15,000 people. And some of them go back 100 years. As I mentioned, they went as workforce to build the railway system as well as the Panama Canal. But more recently, because it's an important financial hub, I'm sure Indian professionals are there. The information technology sector is another area which has attracted Indian talent to these countries. Coming back to what are the other areas of cooperation, please remember that all three are important, vibrant democracies, as is India. Honorable Vice President is also chairman of Rajya Sabha. He's taking with him a high-level, multi-party delegation to showcase India's plural democracy. And I think throughout his exchange in all the three countries, he would be, in fact, meeting with heads of the parliament and members of parliament. So that is, again, a very important component of collaboration and commonality in his tour of these three countries, of democracies coming together.
Akhilesh, Mike.
Who are those member of parliament who are going?
So the composition of the delegation of Honorable Vice President includes the Minister of State for Tribal Affairs, that's Shri Jaswant Singh Bhabor. In addition to that, there are four members of parliament, Shri Tiruchi Shiva from DMK, from Rajya Sabha, Shri Anil Desai, Rajya Sabha, Shiv Sena, Srimati Chaya Verma from the Indian National Congress, again Rajya Sabha, and Shri Kamlesh Paswan, Lok Sabha, BJP.
Sridhar.
Ma'am, just taking off from Akhilesh's earlier question, we've seen we've seen President Kovind make a series of visits to African countries, and you also mentioned that now the Vice President's visit to Latin and South America, it's a part of a initiative to visit countries in this region. So is this part of a start of a diplomatic offensive in the Central and South American continent? The way President Kovind has visited only African countries so far. So can we expect more such visits from the Vice President to that part of the world?
I wouldn't want to use the word diplomatic offensive. I'd just like to use very positive expressions for our relationship with each of these 33 countries with whom we have very cordial relations. As I mentioned earlier, we have an extreme amount of goodwill that India enjoys in each of these. In spite of the distance, there has been a very vibrant and a growing trade and economic investment relationship with them. As I mentioned to you, the Latin American region is important for us, for our energy security and for our food security, because most of them, not these three specific countries, but several other countries in the region are actually rich in natural resources, rich in commodities. We import a lot of oil from them, and also for our food security. So, and it's not as though it's a newfound relationship. I took you back to our own Prime Minister's visit in 2014, when in fact that was one of his first visits overseas, when he'd gone to attend the BRICS summit, where he not only attended the summit, but he also, at that opportunity, met with a whole lot of other leaders from South American countries. That year, he also had several other meetings with leaders from the Latin American region, on the margins of the UNGA. He's hosted President Temer from Brazil on a full state visit. He went to Mexico. As I mentioned, our own Minister of State for External Affairs has been to several countries. There have been other ministerial visits, not just of our Minister of State for External Affairs, but other cabinet ministers who have gone to that region. Most recently, Commerce and Industry Minister had gone to Panama and to Havana. So this is part of our engagement, high-level engagement in that region. And of course, the fact that we've not had such a high-level visit at the level of our Vice President, except when former Vice President led the delegation to the non-aligned movement. But yes, we are enhancing this engagement is an important component of our engagement with these countries.
Yes, please.
Recently, Peru has shown interest in buying BrahMos, or sort of, could you highlight, they would be part of discussion?
I'm not aware.
Peru has, there were news across, has asked for, shown interest in buying BrahMos missile, or sort of,
We have an ongoing defense cooperation agreement, but specifically on this particular issue, there is nothing on the cards.
So this will not be the part of discussion?
Not on this visit, no.
Thank you.
If there are no other questions.
There's one.
Oh, here. Yes, Tripti.
Thank you. Ma'am, you mentioned something about English learning. I think you suggested that they are keen on collaborating with India in English learning. How are we going about it? Thank you.
Well, we have, in fact, under the ITEC scheme, and the ITEC scheme is well known to all of you, we have provided courses for teaching English language. We are in discussions and helping maybe set up an English language center. We'll be very happy to do that. We've done it in several other countries. And this would be specifically in Peru? For Guatemala, or training of English teachers in Guatemala. At this stage in Guatemala, but we do provide ongoing courses in English language training. When there is a lot of interest, and not only is there interest, but those who have attended our ITEC programs and other scholarship programs have expressed deep appreciation and satisfaction with the training courses provided in teaching English. They are, as you know, Spanish-speaking countries, all three of them.
Thank you. With this, we conclude the briefing. Many thanks to secretaries who could find time to come and brief you all. She was busy in another meeting. Thanks also to Joint Secretary LAC, Partha, and thank you all for joining.
Thank you very much for joining. And I just thought I'll tell you that we'll keep you updated from time to time as the visit proceeds. Thank you. I'll be in the delegation as well.